Alright, what's up guys, gals, whatever you are. So this just came in case you're wondering. I did buy this from Revzilla, and I gotta say they're really good. Everything I ordered was exactly the way it was supposed to be, packed good. Came in quick, relatively quick. So in case you're wondering, this is the bassani 3-inch firepower slip-ons for my Sportster 48. So bear in mind, this is stock exhaust, but my baffles have been drilled. So I'm just going to get you kind of a sound clip before I actually take the mufflers off. So there you go. In case you guys are unfamiliar, this is what we're going to be installing it on. This is a 2016 48, aka Sportster XL 1200X, if that's a little better for you. But it'll be the same for just about any Sportster, and to be honest, most motorcycles in general are at least fairly similar. But we're going to start in the back here. These are just slip-ons. However, installing a full system on a Harley is really not that much more difficult than installing slip-ons, to be honest with you. So this is what my exhaust would have looked like. This was on there. I've already taken these off because my exhausts were scraping the ground and these clamps were destroyed. So before you do anything, you're gonna find these clamps on your heat shields, and basically you need a fairly average set of sockets for most bikes. I use a socket to get these clamps off because it makes it much easier than using a screwdriver, and it is a 5/16. So you get your socket on there, you loosen them up all the way. Let's see. If you loosen the clamp all the way, it'll pop open and you can just spread it open and pull these heat shields off. And then I like to use the same tool to see if I can get you guys a look at this. So they glare. Anyways, so right here is another of those little clamps, and this one is for the heat shield on the actual pipe. So I loosen that up just to make it easier, and I'm going to start in the rear, because if you don't, your rear muffler will make it kind of more difficult to get the front one off. Okay, so we're going to loosen this up. These you don't have to take off, just loosen them kind of a lot to where you can wiggle this heat shield around a little bit. If you wanted to take your factory heat shields off, now would be a good time. So there's, I think, 2 more clamps on the heat shield. Just loosen them all up where you can kind of wiggle the shield around. You can see this kind of wiggles around. You're going to want to get a slightly larger socket set. That bolt there, loosen that. Okay, this bolt here, 9/16. It'll probably be easier with a wrench, so I'm gonna go ahead and get that. So 9/16 wrench, no big deal. Pretty tight. Anyway, this one too, you're gonna loosen it a good bit. If you don't loosen it a lot, it'll make it kind of difficult to get these things off. You can see the bolt that I'm working on. It's gotten to where I can just kind of loosen it by hand. I'm going to loosen it as far as it can go without actually coming off. Then you can kind of spread the clamp a little bit with your hand, and you should be able to wiggle this clamp around. So the next thing you're going to need to do is actually underneath your muffler with a 1/2 inch wrench. Hopefully you guys can see all of this. You have 2 bolts that hold your muffler onto a bracket. Those are 1/2 inch. We're going to take those off. And on the front, you can see you have 4. You want to make sure you're taking the ones that hold the muffler on and not the ones that hold the bracket to the bike. So just make sure you get the right ones. Shouldn't be that difficult. Half-inch bolts. You got 2 of them on the rear, and you have 4 on the front. But the ones on the front, 2 of them actually hold this big bracket, which I'll show you in a second. So there goes your hardware. So now you're pretty much ready to slip this thing off. You can see it's pretty loose. It is kind of hard to get off. Alright, so now you got exhaust off. You can see the clamp here. Keep this clamp, you're gonna need it. So just pull your clamp off. You can set your stock mufflers wherever you want. So there's the bracket here. This was the bracket that I was talking about on the front one. Make sure you loosen the correct bolts, otherwise you'll wind up taking the whole bracket off, and you don't want to do that. So we're going to undo the front one and get back at it. Alright, so I've basically done the same thing on this one. You loosen the bolt on the other underside of this clamp. Then you have a few clamps on the heat shield just to kind of get it loose, where you can get this out. Then your 2 bolts underneath. Then you just slide it off just like the front one. One thing, whenever you're sliding this back, try not to pull that out on it or push in on it or up or down or anything too much. Just kind of twist it, because otherwise you can kind of push on your headers, and you don't want to break a bolt in your actual block. There you go. And hopefully you guys can see all the freaking rash on the underside of my exhaust. That sucks. Now that you have this here, you're ready to start reinstalling your new ones. And for the reinstall, you're going to want to start at the front. So we'll basically just do the opposite of what we did. These aren't particularly lightweight, so it's not exactly a huge weight savings. I think they are a little lighter than the stock exhaust though. But these are, from what I can tell, as far as slip-on, Bassani is going to give you the best performance. And I also hear that they're pretty freaking loud, which is a bonus. On one of the mufflers, on some, they have a little emblem, and you're probably going to want that on the rear, but mine don't have that, so it doesn't matter. Put that over there. Then we'll get your exhaust here, get your clamp on the front. The bolt should be facing down. Push your clamp over the mouth of the exhaust. Sometimes it can be a pain. Maybe use the rubber end of this to kind of tap it on here. And I like to have it just flush with the front of the actual exhaust pipe. Then we're going to try and slide this on there. And you call these slip-ons for a reason, although I think they should call them beat-ons. Of course, then I guess you would have to call the stock exhaust beat-offs. Just kind of use a little twisting motion. Don't pull out or push in or up or down, because you don't want to torque on this. So just twist and push toward the front. It shouldn't be too hard. And Bassani did send me some new hardware, so I did read beforehand though that these Bassani 3-inch are probably the best power and torque that you can get out of a slip-on for a Sportster, so that's why I chose them. And I read that from a third-party test, not from a Bassani website or anything like that. Okay, so I'm gonna use some blue Loctite on the new hardware. These bolts don't even go all the way through the bracket. Let's see if I can show you this. So here's this little short bolt. Doesn't even make it up through the gasket. That's dumb. So apparently this hardware is trash. Then you're just gonna get your exhaust where you need it to be, bolt it up. So we got the front one on there. I'm gonna hold off on tightening everything up completely, because if something goes awry, I want to be able to take it off kind of easily. The stock clamp, and on the rear this should face upward. Makes things a little easier. Same thing as before, you slide it on there. What I ended up doing with the hardware situation is the stock bolt, put some Loctite, then I put flat washer, and then I put it through, and right here in between the support bracket and the actual pipe, I put another flat washer, just because it seemed strange not to. The front one seemed like it was kind of pulling down a little too hard, so by doing this, it kicks it up just, a couple of millimeters. Take your 1/2-inch wrench, tighten these fuckers down. So there you go, tighten the bolts underneath. Then you can go ahead and grab your 9/16. This clamp, you can kind of beat on it to twist it to where you don't see that big bolt sticking up so much. Just tighten this up. This you want fairly tight. Don't break anything, but get it pretty good and tight to where you don't have any kind of leaks. Take your 5/16 and tighten up all your heat shield clamps. So anyway, oh, you don't want to hear that when you're tightening up a clamp. Alright, there you go. Bassani 3-inch firepower is installed. I tightened everything up, wiped it all clean. We'll let you guys hear how it sounds, but first keep in mind, anytime you're changing exhaust or air intake, like right there, you're going to want to have some kind of fuel controller. And so far this Vance & Hines FP3 has been really cool. Riding around, auto tuning it, and most people will recommend that you have something similar to that, regardless of what brand, if you're going to be changing the exhaust. Some people say that just slip-ons, you don't really need it. However, my school of thought is that the majority of these bikes are already not running at their peak from stock, even with stock exhaust. So if you change it even just a little bit, it's probably best just to go ahead and make up for it with that fuel controller. So just keep that in mind when you're buying an exhaust. You probably want to buy that fuel pack first. Now I'll go ahead and let you guys hear what it sounds like. those things are loud. That's one thing about Harleys. You don't have to necessarily change the headers to get that really loud sound like you do on a sport bike. But there you go. I'll let you guys know later on. Kind of a long-term deal if I notice any power difference or anything like that. But that's all I got. Peace.
You know what's going on, what's going on. You know what's going on, what's going on. Die. You define, die.